Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Welcome to section 5.5, half-angle identities.
Now these can be tricky, but our objective is that students will be able to solve and develop problems using half-angle identities. And this is my cat, Autumn. Alright, so back again with some examples. So right now we're talking about sine 15. We have to multiply that by 2, and it gives you sine 30. Now we have to draw that in the correct quadrant. Make sure you display that 30-degree angle and figure out the side lengths with that. We have 1 across from the 30, 2 across from the 90-degree angle, and square root of 3 across from the 60.
So next we're going to figure out that cos of this is square root 3 over 2, which we'll plug into our formula, which, as you know, for sine is square root of 1 minus cos all over 2. So as you plug it in, this is what you'll get. So to simplify, you're going to multiply everything by 2 to get the square root 3 by itself, so it's easier to do the math out. So once you do that, you will get 2 minus root 3 all over 4. And reminder, this is all still in the square root. So then you're just going to simplify that, and it's going to remain root 2 minus a root 3 over a 2.
Moving on to our next example, we have cos 157.5. We're going to multiply that by 2, which gives us 315 cos. We're going to draw out our triangle. Again, we have a 45, 45, 90, and you're going to do the 1 across from the 45s and square root of 2 across from the 90.
So for this equation, our cos is 1 over root 2, but we're going to simplify that by multiplying both the numerator and the denominator by root 2 over root 2, which will give us root 2 over 2. So then we're going to plug it into our equation, which is going to be 1 plus root 2 over 2 over 2. So again, we're going to simplify this by multiplying everything by the 2, and it will give us 2 plus root 2 over 4, and this is still in the square root. So that will equal 2 plus root 2 over 2, and the top is in the square root.
So we're back with the answers to the practice problems. So first you're going to take cos 30 and you're going to multiply that by 2, which is going to give you cos 60. And after you do that, you need to draw out your triangles in the first quadrant. And it is going to be a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So the square root of 3 is across from the 60, the 2 is across from the 90, and 1 across from the 30-degree
So now
moving on to the equation, we are going to take the measurements for the triangle, and it gives us 1 plus square root of 2 over 2 over 2, and that's going to be all within the square root sign. Now, to simplify this, we're going to multiply the whole equation by 2, which is going to give us 2 plus square root of 2 over 4. But we know that 4 can be taken out of the square root sign, so we're going to be left with 2 plus square root of 2 over 2. Alright, so moving on to the next problem, we have sine 22.5. So we have to, again, multiply this by 2, which is going to leave us with sine 45. Now, after we've completed this step, we have to move on to drawing the triangles in the correct quadrant. The triangle is going to be a 45, 45, 90 triangle. And with that, we are going to take the measurements and write out the equation, which is going to give us 1 minus square root of 2 over 2 over 2, and that's going to be within the square root sign. And to further simplify that, we need to multiply the entire equation by 2, which is going to give us the square root of 2 minus square root of 2 over 4. And we know that 4 cannot be in a square root because it can be further simplified, so that's going to give us our final answer of square root of 2 minus square root of 2 over 2. Alright guys, back with the answers for the practice problems. First, you're going to want to draw out the triangle in the correct quadrant. This triangle is going to be a 3, 4, 5, and with the negative 3 on the bottom, make sure you remember that negative. And next you're going to want to use the equation, so it's 1 plus a negative 3 over 5 over 2, and that's going to be in the square root. But you're going to have to multiply everything by the 5 in order to simplify it. So it's going to become a 5 minus 3 over 10 within the square root. And then to simplify that further, that will equal 2 over 10 within the square root, which again, you can simplify it one more time to square root of 1 over 5. And we all know that you cannot have a square root in the denominator, so you're going to want to simplify that one more time, multiply both the numerator and denominator by square root of 5, which will give you your final answer of square root of 5 over 5. Okay, so moving on to problem 2, we realize that we have coat, so we need to change that to tan 4 over 3 to end up solving the equation. Now we have to draw the triangle out in the third quadrant, and it is going to be a 3, 4, 5 triangle with the -3 and -4. Make sure that you remember that. Now we are going to draw out the equation, and that is going to give us a 1 minus a -3 over 5 over 2 within the square root. And to further simplify that, it is going to be 1 plus 3 over 5 over 2 within the square root. Now you're going to have to multiply both the numerator and denominator by 5 to simplify it once more. So you're going to get 5 plus 3 over 10, which you can simplify again to 8 over 10, again within the square root. And 8 over 10 can be simplified yet again to 4 over 5. And we know that 4 can be taken out of the square root, and that's going to leave us with 2 over square root of 5. And we can't have a square root in the denominator, so we have to simplify that again, and our final answer will be 2 square root of 5 over 5.
So for our first practice problem, we're finding sine when cos is -4 over 5. So as we know, the equation for finding sine is 1 minus cos, but since our cos is negative, it's going to be 1 plus 4 over 5 over 2, which is all in the square root. So then we're going to multiply everything by 5 to get rid of the fraction, and that will give you 5 plus 4 over 10, still all in the square root. So then to simplify that, 5 plus 4 is going to give you 9, and it's still going to be over 10. And then you can square root that 9, which will give you 3, but it will still be over the square root of 10. So then, as you know, you can't have a square root on the bottom of the fraction, so you have to multiply the top and the bottom by square root 10 over square root 10, which will simplify to 3 square root 10 over 10. So for our last practice problem, you see that we have a cosecant, which is going to equal sine of 8 over 17. So first, you're going to draw your triangle out, making sure it's in quadrant 2, which, as you know, it's going to give you a -15, an 8, and a 17. So to plug into the formula when finding cos, it's going to be 1 plus a -15 over 17 over 2, all in the square root. So to get rid of that -15 over 17, we're going to multiply everything by 17, which is going to give us 17 minus 15 over 34, which is still going to be in the square root. So then that simplifies to 2 over 34, which is still in the square root. And then you can simplify that again to 1 over square root 17. And then to get rid of that square root 17 on the bottom, because you can't have that, you multiply both the numerator and the denominator by root 17 over root 17, which is going to give you a final answer of root 17 over 17.
Hey, thanks for tuning in, and thanks for watching.